how do you cope up with mental health, and if you can share some tips to get rid of this word called stress. Some people actually just go down in the dumps and they're not able to handle that criticism or that harsh feedback, as you would like to politely say. How do you cope up with that? How do you handle that, and what message you can pass on to people for that? Now, what do you think? What is your opinion about the youth? What are your insights, and what you think is shaping the youth as of today? So it said, live as if you were to die tomorrow and learn as if you were to live forever. These are not my words, but by the great Mahatma Gandhi. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today we have a very distinguished guest who's a stalwart in the field of education, writing, and mental health. With your permission and with a lot of pleasure and pride, may I announce and may I introduce the towering guest that we have today for our podcast, and he is none other than Mr. Kartik Bajoria.
Thank you so much, Alok. Any interaction with you does absolute wonders for my ego and self-confidence. And your greatly exaggerated introduction, I'm not going to dispute that, only because it's completely made my day. But on a perfectly sincere note, I have genuine admiration for anybody who makes the effort to do these kinds of podcasts, because I think they can bring value to the viewer at large. So thank you.
Pleasure is all ourselves, and let me tell all of you that it has been a podcast in making for the longest time, and finally today is the day when we are going to present it live to you. So please pay attention, because this is going to be a very fun-filled and a very life-changing podcast in ways more than one. So without wasting any time, so we would want to get straight to the point that so since I have done a little R&D on you, so I have seen that you have your first name as your prominent name, your visible name everywhere, your business card, your letterhead. So what exactly is this, kind of a marketing campaign or some kind of a thoughtful approach? What is it? Why do you use only your first name, Kartik?
In my own defense, first and foremost, I'm a family man. I love my family. I'm not trying to desert them. But the underlying reason I have done this, and I've done it quite recently, is that I think you may agree that a lot of us Indians, and I think it extends to South Asians as well, our identities tend to be derived largely from our families and our family names, and they are oftentimes also dictated by people in our families in terms of identifying what we'll generally do with our lives. I feel that in today's day and age, particularly with heightened competition, with everybody being extremely well qualified, there is an even greater need to focus on individuality, and automatically when you get rid of that surname, it's a symbolic way of getting rid of the familial baggage, which may be positive or negative, and focusing and honing in on the uniqueness, peculiarity, eccentricities that make that individual the beautiful individual he or she is.
Well, I can't agree more, because I published my first book under the name Alok K without mentioning the weight of the surname. In fact, to all of yours, the name of the channel is also Elevate With Alok and not Elevate With Alok blah blah blah. But we also want to highlight a very sensitive point over here in your journey, where generally it's said that people have that roadblock in their life once they face a fatal illness or a critical injury. You are also a cancer survivor. Now, we really don't want to dig the insensitive part of it, but if you could share, how did that transform you, or what kind of change that bring in you?
After a life-altering event like cancer, most people who come out of it are much wiser for it. I don't think I am, because a lot of things I ought to be doing, particularly when it comes to managing my diet, etc., have not been done. Having said that, I think my greatest lesson, which I'm desperately trying to implement, and I think I've been moderately successful at it, is to understand a very simple life philosophy that lots of great philosophers, thinkers have written about extensively, is to live in the present and to live in the moment. Because I feel again that is very relevant to the situation we find ourselves in today, where the present moment is always, almost always, distracted by something or the other. It can range from being on one's phone to being preoccupied with various worries, stresses. So whatever that may be, I try my best to live in the moment and in the present, because I've understood the fragility and the frailty of life and how long it may or may not be there.
Oh, great. But there's one question which a lot of people have forced me to ask you, and I think that is a need of the hour, which says that now, since you are in touch with the current lot, the Gen Z and the next generations we talk about through your teaching.
Very important caveat that I have to issue here before I answer your question. In a country as large and diverse as ours, we must be aware and understand that different regions, different cities, different towns, different states के लोग अलग अलग sociological stages or phases में हैं, right? To put this in context very quickly, my daughter goes to an alternative school in Jaipur.
Okay.
In Jaipur, and this is not a criticism, it's merely an example of the stage the city is in. In Jaipur, that particular school and patronage of it is very little, because it's an extremely esoteric, out of the box choice. Because sociologically, people here are in a stage where they aspire to send their children to a legacy school. That may not be true of Delhi or Bombay, because there they'll be in a completely different stage. So ये हमें ध्यान में ज़हन में रखना जरूरी है. Having said that, by and large, I'm a huge admirer of the youth. I'm a huge admirer of the current young generation. Please don't ask me what term it is, because I'm very confused about the alphabets and the nomenclature. But I can tell you, with extensive interaction, middle school kids, high school kids, very, very sharp, very exposed, because there's been an explosion of the digital age. Literally sitting at home, these kids know infinitely more than I ever did. Having said that, there is this strange contradiction and dichotomy that I've been noticing more and more, which is that due to certain extremely high pressures, pressure for performance, pressure for marks, pressure scholastically, pressure from within families, schools, peers, and the self, and pressure to fit in, belong, and be considered cool, quote unquote, there is this duality in a lot of youngsters where they are actually terribly underconfident and unsure of what they are doing and who they are, but they have to project a confident image.
Oh, that's true. I think because the current generation is, I think they're overwhelmed with the kind of options that they are, they have access to. So that is something which really need to listen to the man himself. But as an individual, if I were to ask you, what are the concerns that you think need to be noticed and addressed?
So I think that we need to, as parents and as teachers, so at both ends, I mean, these are primarily the two blocks of people who are caregiving for a child or a student. Acceptance is a very big one. Acceptance in every aspect and facet of that child's life and about that child. Sorry, again, ranging from sexual orientation preference to how he or she identifies in terms of their gender, their perception, in terms of their talents, interests, passions, इंस्टेड ऑफ जैसे हमारे जमाने में होता था कि ये 4 ऑप्शंस हैं बेटे, there was a preset, very, very narrow and short list. We are in a different world. We inhabit a planet where options are galore. And I think that lot of life paths and careers that were until recently called and considered quote unquote alternative have become mainstream. And there are realistic chances of making viable, successful careers in them. So and acceptance and encouragement.
Oh, great. Wow. So I am sure by now the youth is watching at you with a lot of hopes, and in the same process, let me ask a very important question that everyone wants to know, and that is regarding to personality. Now, personality is something which is the USP which actually differentiate different individuals, and everyone today wants to have that winning personality. They are just waiting to hear from you how they can get it.
There's absolutely no secret sauce or some kind of mantra that I wish I did, and that I could share.
So that's his way of putting things. He is a master of euphemism and humility. Let me tell you. Yeah.
No, but having said that, I will offer one pretty stern criticism that I have noticed at the cost of criticizing my own peers and contemporaries. The way we approach personality development in our country and in many parts of the world, I find is at a very upari surface superficial level. Typically speaking, if you go to an educator, an individual, or an organization or an institute for these kinds of classes, you will be given a bunch of scenarios. आप रेस्टोरेंट में हैं तो आप ये कर सकते हैं, ऐसे बोल सकते हैं, आप यहाँ हैं तो आप ये कर सकते हैं, ऐसे बोल सकते हैं. That has value, that is important, but I feel that if you really analyze it, and there's no rocket science in this, I have not hit upon some formula. Confidence comes from a combination of two things. It comes from awareness, and that awareness in turn gives an individual self-confidence. So awareness of current affairs and awareness of one or two domains that that individual is either inhabiting or is passionate about. The moment I'm armed with a certain amount of knowledge and awareness, I will automatically have content to talk about with authority. If I don't have anything to say, where will that confidence, what will I infuse that confidence into? Right?
Very true.
So I always advise my students, and I understand reading the newspaper can be very, very depressing. It's terrible. Most of it is extremely violent news.
Unless it's about Bollywood.
But there are now, because again of the age we're in, there are so many apps. In Shorts pe jao, curate the feed you want, and just go through it for 10 minutes every day. You will get topical news related to your interest areas in 100 words or less. So the moment you increase your awareness, you will automatically feel like talking. That jijak of not talking, which we wrongly attribute to not knowing the language, not having vocabulary, is all completely exaggerated, because people who leave an indelible mark and become memorable, they are neither masters of English nor pandits of Hindi.
Oh, true. So I think I would really resonate with the point you said. We barely scratch the surface. And as the great Nelson Mandela said, education is the most powerful weapon that you can use to change the world. So I think this is the master, the golden advice which you can follow and really conquer all your fears and be successful. Next is a very important step in the era of the new age civilization, and that is the keyword called internet. Now, internet has actually shaped lives like none other. We are breathing internet, we are breathing this digitization every single moment. But we want to know the communication point of view, that how has it impacted communication and how has communication evolved or devolved because of this internet age?
The first thing I feel is prudent and wise to be cognizant of is that every time throughout history there has been a paradigm shift because of the introduction and advent of a completely revolutionary new technology. It has always begun with more skeptics than optimists.
Mhm.
It has always begun with more criticism than praise. And it has always begun with this very exaggerated environment of fear कि अब तो सब खत्म हो जाएगा.
Mhm.
And then things settle. It happened when video came.
Oh yeah.
It happened, people thought bas ho gaya. It happened when audio cassettes came. People thought that's it, radio is dead. And we are thriving now in an environment where I have lost count of the number of radio stations. Similarly, the internet age, and I'm going to bung it in with AI, the internet and AI age, although very separate, the internet, of course, has settled. The huge advantages, particularly in terms of communication, that the internet has enabled are not lost to anybody. From all of us being in touch with our near and dear, even finding them after years of not being in touch due to the internet, we all know, we've experienced it, we love it. We are now in a position to do video calls across the globe. If we look at it in a slightly macro sense, people in remote areas, war-torn areas can access all kinds of facilities from medical advice, etc.,
The world is
due to
shrinking.
the internet.
Yeah.
So I think it's been a huge boon and a bigger boon than a bane. As far as AI is concerned, we're at that stage where there's a lot of fear that's absolutely justified. Having said that, we need to take a step back and just breathe calmly and seek refuge in the almost surety that, like all these other technologies that came earlier, this too will settle down. There will be a rejigging of the world order in that sense. Maybe certain jobs will change and evolve. Maybe KRAs will be redefined, but it will happen. It's not as if we'll all be sitting at home and twiddling our thumbs while robots take over. I don't think that'll happen. I'd like to see it as a more optimistic thing. In terms of teaching communication skills, yes, my advice always, because I suddenly found my students turning in assignments in 2 minutes, is that it's not even about, "Arey, aapne 2 minute mein kar liya." Individuality. Zero. Learning, zero. So, if you're a self-motivated individual, if you're a student who's curious and genuinely wants to develop knowledge and skill, limit your usage and dependency and temptation to employ AI, and you'll be fine.
So I think that is the lesson, that in the era of the chat GPTs and the deep fakes, I think what defines you as an individual is going to stand out. Great. All right. But we also want to know something which is equally demanding, trending, and sought after advice, and that is because of the word called stress. Now, you have been a promoter, a torchbearer of mental health. So I think a lot of people would want to know, how do you cope up with mental health, and if you can share some tips to get rid of this word called stress.
All my very limited knowledge, and this is not something that I'm saying out of any kind of reverse psychology, genuinely, because I haven't studied the subject, I'm not a practitioner. I have learned a fair bit over the past couple of years of running our mental wellness platform, but it's all been knowledge and exposure I've gained from extended interactions with very, very good mental health professionals. And I believe, and that makes complete sense to me, first and foremost, like cholesterol, there is good stress and bad stress. So when we say or think of the word or the phenomenon stress, we shouldn't needlessly freak out, because we should be able to first discern what stress we are experiencing and whether that falls into the category of good stress or bad stress. A certain degree of stress before a presentation at office, before writing an exam, before going on a date, will keep you sharp, aware, and on your toes.
True.
And that is good stress. When stress becomes debilitating, when stress, because please understand that stress is not the root cause of the problem. Stress is the symptom. If stress becomes problematic in that it is for an extended period of time, compelling you to not function to the best of your ability, that's when it's a problem. There are several non-clinical things that can be done for stress. I'm not going to give a bhashan here. I feel what works for me personally is in our extremely busy lives, in our demanding lives, बॉस चाहता है 24 घंटा उनको दो, स्पाउस चाहता है 24 घंटा उनको दो, बच्चे चाहते हैं 24 घंटा उनको दो. इस वातावरण में 15 मिनट से 20 मिनट का मी टाइम, चाहे वो कुछ भी करने में हो या कुछ ना भी करने में हो, वो कार्व आउट करना बहुत ज्यादा इसेंशियल है. एंड इफ यू कैन टेक आउट दोस 15-20 मिनट्स of non-negotiable, sanctimonious, sacrosanct me time in a 24-hour cycle, you will find, I feel, very, very relieved. Then, of course, there's a long list of very well-known tips and tricks. Journal करिए, बात करिए, ड्राइववे देवी सेफ सर्कल सपोर्ट ग्रुप में आइए ट्यूसडे इवनिंग को, भड़ास निकालिए. There are all kinds of things, but me time, I feel, is very important. And if you are not being able to manage this with lifestyle differences and changes, please, please, please seek professional help.
Wow, I think that was the advice of a lifetime. And in fact, science has also proved that stress is not the problem. Stress remains only for a few minutes. But if you keep overthinking about the stress, then that is a problem. So thank you so much. And for all those people who find it hard to deal with their bosses, you can always read my book, How to Revive Your Work Life.
Absolutely.
There's another thing that we really want to know, and I think that is something which really bothers a lot of people, and that is about the skeptics, the naysayers, people who keep pulling you down. I think we somehow try to fake that, but not everyone can, and some people actually just go down in the dumps, and they're not able to handle that criticism or that harsh feedback, as you would like to politely say. How do you cope up with that? How do you handle that? And what message you can pass on to people for that?
I think it really, really boils down to one's mental health. And by that, what I mean is, जब हम छोटे बच्चे की परवरिश करते हैं, अगर हम उस ही समय से what we had talked about earlier, कि आप एक्सेप्टेंस और इनकरेजमेंट उस बच्चे को दोगे, उस इंडिविजुअल को दोगे, वो ऑटोमेटिकली जैसे जैसे बड़े होंगे इतने रिजिलियंट हो जाएंगे, इतने सेल्फ अश्योर्ड हो जाएंगे कि उनके अराउंड एक कवच बन जाएगा. प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड, आई एम नॉट टॉकिंग अबाउट डिसेंसिटाइजेशन. वो एक बहुत अलग चीज होती है. इनफैक्ट आई वुड नेवर प्रोपगेट दैट बिकॉज आई think that feelings and emotions are extremely important and they make us human and empathetic. So you become a resilient enough individual where you become simply above all this. And that is the key to it. Whether it has happened for you via your family or not, if it hasn't happened, unfortunately, you can build your own resilience through various ways. Again, seek therapy. You don't necessarily have to go to a psychologist for that. Even if you do a little bit of work with a life coach, you can really bolster your self-image, self-concept, and mental resilience.
Wow, I think that is something which we all need to learn. And just imagine the kind of life that you need, that you want to live, the life that you're living. It all depends on just one person, and that's you.
Yeah.
So it won't be wrong to say that today's podcast was really heavy yet entertaining, and it has really shaped lives of so many people by the wonderful advices and meaningful value addition that it contributed. Thank you so much. It was really a pleasure. It was wonderful knowing you. And I think we are not going to end here. We will be back again because there's so much more. And don't miss out the music track which is about to release. I think that is going to be equally entertaining.
No, but before going, can I just genuinely
Please.
say that, you know, you are talking about life lessons and doing good for people and society. You are already doing that. You've done that beautifully through your book, and now you're doing it through this series. And to bring these conversations to the public at large is in itself a huge service. So thank you for doing that. I wish you all the best always. As far as returning to me, I have major verbal diarrhea, so you're welcome back anytime. I love giving gyan.
Oh, so nice, so nice. Thank you, people. Thank you for joining us. And if you like this content, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you and have a nice day. Take care.